Feel the rhythm, taste the love. We're making up the best. Imani's original, a color above the rest. Sweet, savory, every bite's divine. Bean pie's fresh every single time. Taste the magic in every slice. Come on, now don't think twice. And Imani's tasting right. Dance along, party all night. Ooh, yeah, we're feeling fine. Imani's love is so divine. Every flavor, oh so true. Bite into love made just for you. Celebrate with each delight. Imani's gonna make it right. Feel the heat, it's rising high. Dance, dance on the moonlit sky. Imani's vibes, it's you and I. Together we reach for the sky. And Imani's tasting right. Dance along, party all night. Ooh, yeah, we're feeling fine. Imani's love is so divine.
Peace and welcome to Conversations Over Pie, where we serve up truth, hope, and a slice of bean pie on every episode. I'm your host, Imani Muhammad, founder of Imani's Original Bean Pies, and I'm so grateful you're tuning in as we uplift stories that shift the narrative in our communities. This is another special episode for me personally. I'm so happy because I get a chance to have, people that I think highly of on my show. I get a chance to sit down with them and share with you the wisdom that I get from so many of my loved ones. But today I bring before you my martial arts teacher, Professor Joaquin Jackson, and my fellow student and sensei, Brian Parker. Welcome to the show. I was just saying before, it's an honor to be able to bring on people that I think highly of, that have helped basically shape my growth and development. And so, of course, I want to start with you, Professor Jackson, and just getting us started with telling us about martial arts, and in particular, Aikido, because that is what I got my rank from with you. Tell us a little bit about what Aikido is in terms of martial arts.
Well, Aikido came out of, or was birthed out of Jiu-Jitsu, because at that particular time, Japanese government wanted to do away with all martial arts that was violent or something of that nature. And the one that is giving credit for Aikido is Morihei Ishiba. And he took that and he kind of hid some of the martial arts and made it seem as though that Aikido is just a defensive art. But Aikido, it can be very, very dangerous, let alone painful, all at the same time. And so there are several components to, mental, physical, emotional, spiritual, and it's just not something that you should delve into just to acquire the belt. But if you're looking to polish your own soul, your spirit, it becomes a lifelong journey. And I've heard over the years that this particular technique or that particular technique takes this amount of time to master. But you can't really give Aikido a cookie cutter for everyone. What I mean by that, it may not take 20 years for somebody to understand a certain technique. But if you look beyond it just being all, how should I put this? The Budo of it, but also look at how you can allow it just to become a part of your life.
Yes,
So
sir.
when that means every encounter does not always have to be a combative situation, but how can you bring peace to a troubled environment? How can you extend love to an environment that hasn't felt it in a while. And you don't have to stand in the middle of the street or anything. It's just the energy that you can bring to it.
Mhm.
People will notice automatically that you don't seem combative, but also when you really study Aikido, right, it's not even about the combative part, about love, peace, and harmony. And when those three principles are added, there's no need for physical chaos.
Right. Right. So, can you share with us how your Aikido journey began and what brought you to teaching it in Chicago?
Yes, I can, and it is in one of the chapters of a book that I wrote that indicated how I actually got started. And it was, I'll always remember it. It was on a Saturday, and I was actually working on my run time when I was ROTC in college. And I
Mhm.
was working on getting my 2 mile run down to 12 minutes and 17 seconds. So I was working on that Saturday, but I had to be work. Uh, I was working for the county, Cook County. I had to be to work at 4 o'clock. But as I was coming back, I was on Chicago State campus, and as I was going to change my clothes, prepare for work, I happened to walk past at that particular time. It was the wrestling room. I heard before I actually saw them. I heard people in there making noise. Oh, whoa! And as I turned the corner, then I saw where all this noise was coming from, and I just stood there and I watched for a few minutes, and I was like, I like to stand here a little bit longer and observe, but I have to go. I have to get ready for work. And then as I was changing clothes, a gentleman walked in, and I said, you were one of the persons in the classroom. You know what is that you all were doing?" And you know, I said, "Okay." So I said, "Well, I'd like to know. I'd like to know some more about it. So when is your next class?" And he said, "On Tuesday." I said, "Okay." Here I am talking to the person that I didn't know that later on would be my instructor, my sensei, my teacher. Uh, when I showed up on that Tuesday, recognized that there was a gentleman there who had known me since my childhood, who was a student as well, and his name was Sensei uh, Fred Geese.
Oh yeah.
Was a customer of my parents for years until he made his transition. Him and Sensei Hawkins had made their transition. So it really solidified me being in the class because I knew him.
Mm.
And that
Mm.
was in 1989.
Wow.
So I've
Wow.
been studying and practicing Aikido since 1989.
Oh wow. Okay. And so, but it sounds to me like you were already active before.
Well, being in the Marine Corps, I boxed, did judo. I did judo first, and then I went to boxing.
Mm.
And then
Mm.
when I left, I did that all in the Philippines in 15 months. I left there. I came back to the States. I boxed on a Marine Corps team in Okinawa, Japan, the Philippines, and I did a little bit of boxing when I came to Camp Lejeune.
Wow. Wow. So I want to get Sensei Brian in to kind of share the same question. What brought you to Aikido, and how long have you been practicing?
So Answer the latter first. I've been practicing Aikido for 26 years, so it's officially um, half of my life. I'm 52 years old, and it's very similar. Listen to Professor Jackson tell his story. I'm like, well, I had a similar story because I was at Oakdale Christian Academy and I was a classroom teacher. Honestly, I left college and I was working at a space where you grew up and you knew a lot of people at the Rebecca Crown Center,
Oh
Chicago
yeah.
Youth Centers over on 76 and Phillips. And
Mm-hmm.
myself and a gentleman named Mr. Pender, we used to run what's called a midnight basketball league, right? And we would start about 9 o'clock and we would try to finish up by midnight. We just be like, but we called it midnight basketball. And a lot of the young fellas, community residents, if I can call them that, would come in there and they're on different sides of the block. But I'm probably every 3 days it was a fight. And we're in there breaking up fights. And I'm not the biggest dude in the gym, right? And so
That's right.
something clicked and it said, I need to learn something to protect myself. So I started looking for boxing, or I was trying to decide between boxing and martial arts, and I settled on martial arts. But I started studying with some Koreans, and I started studying Hapkido, and I did that for 3 years. And I had a sensei in there, Sensei John St. Preux, who was my fraternity brother. He kept telling me, "Man, you got to come over here and see these brothers, man. That man." And I was hearing them, but I'm like, I'm this close to getting my black belt, right? So once I get, because he was already a black belt in Hapkido, I said, once I get my black belt, I thought that was the mission to get a black belt. I'll come over there. And then I was watching a program on Crow, and I see a brother there. I remember his name, Tyrone Powers. He was an FBI agent, and he
Oh
was
yeah, Tyrone
spitting some
Powers.
facts. He was spitting so many facts that I remember Brother Munir said, if you want to hear more, come on down here to Crow. And I didn't stay too far. I said, I'm going to get in my car. I'm going to come on down because FBI and facts, at that time, I was doing a lot of research, reading books and trying to understand what this government was really on, the United States government. And then I'm also a teacher at Oakdale Christian Academy. And then I see Sharif there. I meet Sharif that day. And then later that week, I see Sharif at Oakdale, and they're signing students up for Aikido. So I'm like, oh, you're the Aikido instructor. He says, I'm assistant Professor Jackson. So I meet with Professor Jackson. And I told this story before. I'm young and spry, and, I'm studying Aikido. And I'm like, oh, you do martial arts. And we were standing in the hallway, and I threw a punch at Professor. And he had...
Wait, you threw a punch at who?
Professor Jackson. I remember it. We standing right outside the office. I don't know if he remembers this, but I was like, you study Aikido. What is Aikido? So I was like, well, what would you do if I do this? I threw a punch. And whatever he did, I was turned around and I was facing the other way. And he had me neutralized. And I'm like, okay, when is your class again? And that was my introduction. Yeah, my introduction to Aikido. But then when I walked in, I'm seeing the brothers. Again, I told the story. The brothers are flying around the mat. And they're looking. I'm like, wait a minute. And that day, I stopped going to Hapkido, and I committed to going to Aikido. And I was a brown belt in Hapkido, but my brown belt didn't feel so brown at that time watching them, because I saw, yellow belts and blue belts flying. I'm like, I don't know how to fly. You know what I'm saying? I want to fly like these brothers. And so that day I committed to it. And I told it before, again, it took me about 2 weeks. And after 2 weeks, I'm like, I'm going to be like you all. Just show me, and then I'm going to do it. So it took me a couple of weeks. I started learning break falls. And why did I do that? Don't learn a break fall. You know what I'm saying? Because Sensei Tristan said, oh, you know how to break fall. Okay. And the next thing you know, you started taking Yukimi from upper ranks. And that's where the education really began.
Mm-hmm. And so my story was totally different. Like, you all were already active, if you will, in some type of disciplines, right? Mm-hmm. Whether it was whether it was boxing, basketball. Mm-hmm. Me, I was just having babies, and my babies were in the martial arts. Okay. So I talk about my son. He started studying, in the jiu-jitsu classes as a young, I think he was around 5. And then we again with Sensei Sharif, because I was a member of Crow, or I am a member of Crow rather. We came to Beverly, and for me, Aikido seemed like something I could do, if you will. I felt like it was better tailored for me as a woman, and a woman that had just, had children. And one of the things I didn't realize when Professor said, "Why don't you get on the mat?" And we were doing what called just the undos, and it not even real undos, just from a sitting position. Go back, come up. I couldn't come up.
Coho Tendo Undo.
Oh, I had no feeling because I had my daughter, and I didn't even realize. I'm like, my chi don't even work. So I'm coming from that vantage point.
Yes.
And to grow into that was phenomenal.
Yes.
But the other thing is, I always wanted to study martial arts as a child, and my parents, we couldn't really afford that, and we didn't really. There wasn't a dojo around us anyway. So I watched, or that we knew of. So I watched Samurai Sunday every week.
Did as well.
So I don't know how it was for you, but to see all of these phenomenal Black masters, that have studied the art, to see them, like you saying, flying, professor flying on one finger.
One finger.
I'm
rolls.
like, whoa,
Yeah, fist rolls, break
yeah,
falls.
on the fist, just all kinds. I'm like, it just, blew my mind. And then the longer I was with them, I've just been blessed to meet so many phenomenal teachers.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we have something here.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
You wanted to chime in, Professor?
Well, let me say this. Aikido is predominantly practitioners of a different persuasion. If you see African Americans practicing Aikido, they are the minority.
It's true.
You one or two, if they're at another dojo, but I was blessed. I was totally blessed that Sensei Hawkins was a African American, but he also was uh, a veteran as well. He was in the Navy. He had been in the Navy, rather, and so his application of Aikido was not really all based on attempting to do a demonstration, but to give you the confidence that if you had to utilize your Aikido, it's gonna work. So Sensei Hawkins was probably all of 5'5" at the most, less than 150 pounds. And when I was coming to his class, I know at that particular time, I'm in my 20s, I was already bench pressing about 315. But when he grabbed me, he was throwing me like I was bench pressing 10 pounds. And so, but he was explaining Aikido is not concerned about what you can bench press. It gives you back what you have sent out. And so he gave a number of golden nuggets that would cause you to, okay, let me think. Not let's just react, but let me think. And Aikido is a beautiful art. Not the politics of it, but Aikido is a beautiful art when you can marry the mind, body, and spirit. And that's in another chapter in a book I wrote. I said, we say mind, body, and spirit. But when you really get into this and you mature in life, that thing flips. It totally flips. Then it goes spirit, mind, then body. And when you reach that pinnacle in your training, then, or even if you don't reach it, but you become aware of it, oh my God, uh, you have transitioned from let me stop looking outside of self and let me deal with self.
Yeah.
And so when you're training from that, and I'm gonna be honest with you, you all have allowed me to be more progressive in learning and do this with excellence. Uh, that 1,000 cuts that we all agreed to do, it changed all of our lives.
That's right.
It changed all of our lives, and then it came to the point where you all were saying, when we're gonna do our 1,000 cuts, when we're gonna do our 1,000 cuts. And one member is not on the phone with us at this particular time, but it just hit me. I just got an email from heaven that if we do the 1,000 cuts in 2025, it's gonna help redeem Professor Smith. It says collective consciousness can change
Mhm.
anything. And so another brother stated to me, he said when he was an underbelt, but he was practicing another art. But when he was an underbelt and he would be in the dojo with us, he would go, he said him and another brother that were underbelts, they would go, when I would bring the bowl out. And they was like, what is this thing with the bowl? Come on. And he said, excuse me, he indicated, he says, you were trying to teach us about healing in the art as well, and we were just not mature enough to understand it. And he says, now, what do you think I'll be listening to, Professor, at night? Tibetan Bowl.
That's right. So I want to, because you answered my question. My next question was going to be if you could speak to the spiritual um, and philosophical roots of Aikido. You did that, but I want our audience to understand what 1,000 cuts entails, and then what is a bowl.
Okay. So the 1,000 cuts is that we would take a boken, a live sword, a heavy water pipe, a joe, and all of the students would have to count uh, in chronological order, starting with me doing the first 100, and then we would just move down the line. And at some point in our counting, there's a transition. You no longer think about what number you on. You just get into that flow. And then that flow will become contagious because everyone would be in the flow. Some would some could say, as Jesus told them, go to the upper room and stay there until I send you a comforter. And so that we will be in that energy, oh my God, that energy that will be happening once you get past 500. Then when you hit 800, oh my God. And then sometimes, I think one time we went all the way to 1,200.
Yeah.
So if
Mhm.
you're, as we indicated before we started the cut, what is your intentions? You don't have to share it with the class, but what is your intention? What is it that you want to cut out your own life that does not glorify God? What is it that you want to cut out in your life that no longer serves your highest purpose? What it is that you want to cut out? Hey, I want to cut out not having to be able to pay these bills. Maybe I want to cut out stop lying. Maybe I want to cut out stop drinking, or whatever it may be. But the thing is that when we set our minds to that, nobody came back and said they didn't benefit.
That's right.
Everyone had a testimony at some point in their season in which they got to respond.
Mm-hmm.
And so I truly believe if we collectively do it in 2025 for Professor Smith, we can help him.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And then as for the audience, the bowls are sound therapy. So we
Oh.
partake in sound therapy,
Well, actually,
meditation, right?
the
Or
the
sound healing.
yes, there it is.
I'm
And
sorry,
so
I said it.
in
Mm-hmm.
Aikido, they were dealing with what they call, it was still called universal truth. And so in a universal truth, what most people have to understand is in universal truth, that is a universal law. So it doesn't matter where you're located at, it still works. And so the bowl the bowl helps reset the body. The body was made to heal itself, but it has to be vibrating at a certain frequency in order for that to happen. And
Right.
therefore, utilizing the sound bowl, actually it helps in assisting a person. This is one of them, but it assists someone in just learning. Let me be still
Mm-hmm.
and not focus on the things that I believe are hindering me, but help me reset.
Yes. Yes, sir. So this next, and I know we got to do a quick commercial, but this next question I'm going to direct to Sensei Parker. And in a city often portrayed by its struggles, how do you see martial arts contributing to peace and discipline here in Chicago? Not only for our youth, but for our youth and everyone as well.
Listen to brother Nuri Muhammad, and he dropped a seed on some young men. Uh, and I listen to a lot of great speakers and motivators, but the seed stuck with me. He said, when you drop the truth on them, even if they're not listening, it's going to penetrate eventually, right? And so I currently teach in the greater Inglewood community, a community that is a great community that has some great stories and has some tragic stories. And a
That's
lot of times, the media, the narrative is to focus on the tragic stories. And so right now I'm on a mission to establish a dojo in the greater Inglewood community. And I say that because I teach at Providence Inglewood Charter School. I also do after school programs at Westcott Elementary. We have a program at Beasley where I attended, Poe Elementary. But every school that I go to, I start with a meditation, right? Every class, whether we're doing basketball, martial arts, dodgeball, kickball, because we do after school sports and movement. And so we do a number of things. When I start with the meditation, it whatever they were dealing with, it's almost like they divorced themselves from whatever they were coming from, and they come into a new realm. Once or twice, I might have forgot to do the meditation, and I'm talking about 7th and 8th graders that look like they should be in high school. If you understand what I'm saying,
right.
Coach, we're not going to do the meditation. And so when I start telling them, LeBron James does a meditation, Kyrie Irving does a meditation at the free throw line before every shot. Your greatest athletes, your greatest entertainers, the people that you look up to before they hit the stage, Jay-Z is going to do a meditation. They're not just going to run out on the stage. Your greatest comedians, Mike Epps, Kevin Hart, Chris Rock, they back there going through their routine. Your greatest actors and actresses, right? The Denzels, Will Smiths, you name it. They're going to have a routine, which is somewhat of a meditation, whether it's a moving meditation, as in a Tai Chi, or whether it's a sitting meditation and being still and waiting for the insight to come. It works for everybody. it works for everybody. And so what I see is not just the Aikido, but teaching. They have a name for it now. Professor brought me up to this. He said, they calling it mindfulness now because you
Right.
see meditation and people start getting all spooked. I had children say, my mom said I can't meditate. It's not Christian like, or it's not part of our faith. And I'm like, oh, we're not meditating. I have to switch it up. We're just closing our eyes and we're breathing. We're just counting our breaths. And so you got to kind of change it up. Because one thing's for sure, Professor said, universal truth, we all have to breathe.
Mm-hmm.
We all have to breathe air in and we have to breathe air out. And so the way that I teach it to them in terms of drawing them closer to themselves is imagine if you had a certain number of breaths in your lifetime, how would you breathe? Right? Would you waste them? Or would you take each and every breath and you would savor each and every breath? I said, so I want you all to imagine that you have a certain number of breaths. Let's say the universe has given you 100,000 breaths left. Are you going to waste them talking that nonsense? Are you going to waste them talking about something that doesn't really matter? Or are you going to be quiet and breathe in and breathe out? And every person that does that, it takes them to a place that's a better place than before.
Yeah. And it's unfortunate that people will say, "Well, don't meditate. You can't meditate. That's spooky." It really, one of the first things that I learned in martial arts was to properly breathe.
Mm.
We lose that along the way, many of
Oh
us.
yeah, correct.
And we're breathing and stopping it right here, and then we want to go run to the doctor and think that they can solve our problem, and they can't. We don't even know how to properly. And so, it's unfortunate that they will say, "Oh, I don't even know how we're going to tie that with being a sinful thing when it's a natural."
Well,
You asked me today, what is the first thing you do when you wake up? And a lot of people say first thing, people run and grab their phone. They run and get some coffee. Or they run and go to the bathroom. And so when she asked the question, my initial thought is the first thing I do was the first thing I did when I was introduced to this world. I take a breath, right? And I breathe in. And I said I try to get to the window, or I try to go outside and I try to get fresh air into my lungs because I know before we take in anything, before you can get water, before you can get food, before you can actually see, you have to be breathing. And so what we want to do, yeah, is to make sure that we're taking in the most natural and freshest breath of air that we can. And for me, that morning air, it just does something to me. It pops my eyes open and it gives me a clarity that I wouldn't normally have if I'm just laying around in the house and sitting in my bed.
Yeah, yes, sir. So I
what
want.
is it possible that I can add an appendage to what Sensei Parker indicated?
Mhm.
Excuse me. For environments that have high resolution of violence but low academia, that's because one of several reasons, but one of the reasons is most of those folks have not spent any time with themselves. Meditation requires you to spend time with yourself. And then, as Sensei Parker indicated, the breath. And when we really understand how important that the breath is, then we would not misuse it as much. First of all, it's a gift. Second of all, it's an answer. Third of all, it has given you a solution. And what I mean by that is that on the medical side of it, if the brain does not receive oxygen past 3 minutes, it'll start becoming damaged. But as long as the brain is receiving oxygen, a person can be still in a coma. So it's a gift. And so if we're looking for solutions to deal with our situations in our community, there's a passage that says,
Something happening.
meditate on this both day and night.
Since
Now,
say, Brian, do you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. So I don't know, something happened. We wanted to continue on.
Yeah. I was
One of
able
the
to hear
things,
Professor Jackson as well. Yeah, I was hearing loud and clear.
oh, you hear?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Okay.
You know, he was in the middle of something. I was just thinking, if I may add, very quickly, because I know you have a agenda to get to. And you know, I've fasted, being around people like yourself. I
mhm,
fasted with no food, and when I started fasting for Ramadan, I fasted with no water. Right? I have yet to fast without breathing.
there you go.
That I cannot give up.
Please don't try that one.
But I can give up anything, right?
That's
Except
right.
breathing. Except breathing. I can give up water for 24 to 48 hours, right? Even longer. You can give up a lot,
That's
but I
right.
cannot let go of breathing. That is
That's
essential.
a wonderful analogy.
Yes.
Yes, sir. So now a few things. I'm trying to look at the time. There's so many. It's so much that you all have to bring to the table. We focused on Aikido, but Professor, you studied more than one art.
Yes,
You also a student of Dr. Abdul Aziz Muhammad in
yes,
the VSK Jiu Jitsu,
correct,
but you also teach Tai Chi,
ma'am.
which is I can't let this show go past without us talking about that as well. So I want to talk about your Tai Chi and how you offer classes and teaching this, because when we talk about breathing, we whether you're getting older or not, but especially those as we're getting older, Tai Chi is so helpful in our continued development and keeping the limbs loosened and
Hmm?
all the aspects, the physical, the mental, and the spiritual aspects of Tai Chi. So I definitely want to talk about Tai Chi, and then we can go into the upcoming conference and the commercial. Can you tell
Okay.
us about the Tai Chi?
So when I look back on that, actually, we were studying Aikido at Chicago State University. And then Sensei Hawkins had us over at uh, the park on King Drive, like 90 something. And then when he decided to open up a dojo in Beverly, I think that was right there at Beverly, 95th and Damon.
Right.
No, before then we were right at Longwood. So before our Aikido class, we had a brother um, that came in who also did jujitsu, but he was also teaching us Tai Chi
Okay. Mhm.
before we got into the Aikido class. And but then I couldn't find him for a while after a while. And so in meditation, excuse me, that's your opportunity to listen, but it's also your opportunity to ask the question to the universe. And so I turned that fan on and I've been coughing ever since. Excuse me.
Mhm.
But when I look at the Tai Chi, as you indicated, as we maturing, we can't stop moving. And so the way our bodies were created by the creator, it was to prepare us, excuse me, to be able to handle continuous movement. And so the Tai Chi allows the body to move at a unified state, but at such a slow motion that you don't have to rush it, but slow it down. And the more you can slow it down and feel your movement, and that your mind, your body, and your spirit is at one, you can get an answer to life challenges, to life situations. And it was meant to help heal you as well. But if we could just utilize that in our community, it would totally help in eradicating some of the issues that our communities are dealing with. It doesn't belong to the Asians. It don't belong to the African Americans. It belongs to whoever decides that they want to keep their body in good motion, have a clear mind, move without having to have a support system, meaning canes, crutches, or things of that nature, but overall have a connection with the universe.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That explains it well. A lot of people think it's just such slow movement that it's easy. And I know, Sensei Parker, you can attest to this. You can develop some real sweat equity with that. Once you advance enough in Tai Chi, and we doing it,
So,
you some serious sweating going on.
give a shout out to my community from which I've grown, the stepping community. And so original style stepping is a form of Tai Chi, right? When you have a partner, and those who step, they know this. Those who have been on the stepping scene. I used to go out, and I'll tell on myself when I was younger, we'd go out and go stepping, and your body is vibrating and the energy is so high that you can't go home and go to sleep. So we leave in one place and go into another place because once we start moving, we don't want to stop. Right. And so the energy you get, there's a euphoria that comes from dancing. Stepping is a form. The way we step here, it's so similar to Tai Chi, and it's artistry in motion. Right. And so anybody that has really gotten into stepping, they know this. You are in a state of, it's a sensual feeling that is on the level of having a hallelujah moment, right? And we have these moments in church, or you might have it at the mosque, you might have it, with your significant other, when you're engaging in adult activities. But it takes you to an elevated state where you are, it is the ecstasy of the enjoyment of it all is just beyond description. My fraternity brothers, my line brothers, we fashion ourselves as one of the greatest group of gentlemen that assemble, right? Because we're so different, but we all strive for excellence. But during COVID, we noticed that a lot of us were, you start looking at brothers like, brother, your jaw's getting a little bigger. You know what I'm saying? What's going on with you? So everybody started checking everybody else. And then they came to me and they say, B, why don't you put together like some martial arts or something? I said, I know what we can do. I said, we can do some Tai Chi on a Zoom like we are now. And we would wake up at 8:00 and we would go for 30 minutes. Just get on. And brothers would get on in their shorts and they look like they can't even wipe the coal out their eye. But by 8:30, as you said, we are sweating. we're moving. And then I would check in with brothers at noon and be like, because I know I'm just waiting for them to tell me. I'm like, man, hey, how'd it go this morning? He said, man, everybody. Man, I couldn't go to sleep, man. I done cleaned out my garage. Man, I done cut the grass. He's like, man, this Tai Chi got me. He's like, bro, and everybody started telling their story of what Tai Chi was doing for them in the morning and the energy they was doing. They was like, man, I done reorganized my shelves. I done changed the tires on my cars. I can't. He's like, I can't stop moving because it put me in a state of motion that, the principle of physics teaches that an object in motion tends to, first, an object at rest tends to stay at rest unless otherwise affected by another object. An object at motion tends to stay in motion, again, unless otherwise affected by another object. So when you come off a Zoom of doing Aikido, we did Aikido on Zoom with Professor, right? When you come off a Zoom of doing Tai Chi, you're not going to just go home and sit down. When we used to get out the dojo, we had to go out, and I go home, I couldn't go to sleep, and that was my younger days. So I was dating and hanging out, 2, 3 in the morning. I had to be at work at, 6:37. But the euphoria of it is something that's beyond description that I live for, on a regular.
Yes, sir. So now is at our time. We want to go into talking about the conference that's coming up. I look forward to it every year. Professor, you're usually one of our teachers. We have a plethora of masters that teach us on that weekend. It's always fun. But I want to allow the producer to show this commercial, and we can get back and talk about the up and coming conference.
You need to know how to defend the greatest gift that God has given to each of us, and that is the precious gift of life. But you got to put the time in. You got to discipline your body and your mind and take the pain that you must take in order to move to the next level of physical combat. Our example must be so compelling that people want to be what we are. Because what we are is what they are. I'm under orders to take care of this. I'm under orders to treat this right, because this is the real house of God. That's right. When you eat properly, think properly, and weigh properly, you are absolutely a beautiful human being.
It's the 30th Annual National Training Conference, July 24th through the 27th. The conference will be held at the Tinley Park Convention Center, 18451 Convention Center Drive, Tinley Park, Illinois. Register you and the entire family at thevskjujitsu.com. Don't miss it.
So that's what we'll be.
That is going to be an outstanding conference reaching 30 years. And I believe I'm 29 years in.
That's a blessing.
Oh, yes, totally.
That's
totally. And I must say this. If all of my training would have just been with Aikido, I would have never had the exposure of what these conferences, being a student, doc, and most of our students always said, man, that's a brotherhood that when you go to this conference that I've never felt before. I've been to numerous Aikido seminars. I'll just leave it at that. But I have met wonderful masters and students at these seminars over the 29 years that folks know me all over the country. And that's all I wanted to do was just study. And then people come up and go, "Hey, you that brother that and I'm like, yes sir, no ma'am, and brother, I liked your technique and so, but the brotherhood, the camaraderie is second to none. And regardless if it's done under the flag of the Nation of Islam, it's available to everybody.
That's right.
And when you ask the question, how do we heal our community by providing martial arts? One of the beauties of the conference is that under Doc being under the tutelage, or I would say Grand Master being under the tutelage of Dr. Moses Powell, one, it was created to protect you in New York. But then when Dr. Moses Powell was in the Nation of Islam, he helped the brothers. Now, if you go back and you do a little bit of history, that in the Shaolin Temple, they were just meditating. It didn't become a martial arts until Buddharama came from India and shared with them the stretching, what he observed watching nature and watching animals defend themselves. So it lets you know that these two things go hand in hand. If you want to live this life healthy, then you need martial arts in your life. Not so you can just break, snap, or crack somebody else up, but so that you can have an inner peace about yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said earlier, for the folks that live in these communities that are challenged, martial arts, real martial arts will really help them. Not just trying to be in a tournament or be first place or second place or whatever, but basically really look to change their own lives. And I always ask this question to any black belt. Tell me what martial arts describes America. But I can tell you there's one thing that I feel in my heart and in my spirit. Studying Sanukis was made in America by a black man, was able to take you anywhere in the world. For those of you that's listening to this, come to the conference. If you're a martial artist or non-martial artist, there's a feeling that is not able to be duplicated by none.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
Regardless of whatever your religious affiliation is, I can rest assured while you're there, you won't feel nothing but love.
That's right. And again, you get to see a lot of masters
Oh my
that
God.
look like you.
Absolutely.
And so, I mean,
It's 100%, 99.9 of them
mm-hmm.
look
and,
like you, will look
and
like you. You will be easy to identify with them.
and now we have the workshops. So not only are you learning martial arts, which deals with the physical, the mental, and the spiritual, but you're learning practical self-defense techniques for mothers, fathers, if for family, the whole family, how
Mm-hmm.
to store your food. We learning those defensive techniques that I know I used to watch on YouTube, other nationalities teach their youth. we have a whole conference wrapped around doing this.
Yes.
And I mean, so that we can be prepared. And then the other thing is this, the minister mentioned in the clip about eating the right foods, physically, mentally, and spiritually. But let's deal with physically first. And I got to wrap this up. We almost nearing our end. But in the school system, I got a chance to get into the school system, and I'm seeing that special needs is like a number one thing right now. Why? And I'm looking at some of the youth. It's really nothing wrong with them. We got a lot of trauma. We know that. But they're feeding them wrong. They come into school with flaming hots.
Absolutely.
Many of our youth can't even mentally digest that stuff. I even told the teacher, just wait a minute, wait for it. Not even a good hour after eating it, it's another child.
Mm-hmm.
It's a different child. So we got so many things and this is what I'm so happy about what we do.
Park over there biting his tongue because
I know he's ready to jump in on this because this is what we bring into the table. Conversations Over Pie, by the way, Sensei Parker, was all about bringing in good media, showing the great things that we do, so that and going against all the negative media that we get, because I'm around some phenomenal people like yourself. But you go ahead, because I know you.
Because you were talking about what students are bringing into the schools, but there's the issue of what the schools are feeding the children. So,
Come on.
I've been a principal of a faith-based school, and my fight was to try to change the school lunch. I went to Emmanuel Christian School, right? And I remember we had lunchroom ladies, and I'm not talking about, I'm not casting no stones at anybody because I'm not perfect, but we had real lunchroom ladies that actually cooked. Lunchroom ladies nowadays don't cook food. They shove something into a machine, and 30 minutes later, it comes out hot. And so there's no cooking going on in the school system. And then here's the worst part. So I started doing this study. I love the study. I started looking at students, and I said, let me just look at some data. Kindergarten, let me look at preschool. How many students do we have asthma? And then I said, let me look at kindergarten. Let me look at first grade. And it started to escalate with each grade, right? Kindergarten, 1 student. First grade, 3 students. Second grade, 5 students. Fourth grade, 8 students. By the time you get to 8th grade, half the classes got asthma pumps. And I start telling them flat out, point blank period, it is the food that you all are eating. And what is the one thing that comes with every school lunch that children should not be digesting?
Milk.
That is a milk. We are serving our children death, and we're couching it as this is healthy, right? We're telling them that milk is healthy, and so I wince at it because it's a lot of miseducation that has gone on, and so when you start to try to speak the truth, as Grandmaster Abdul Aziz once told me, because I was struggling with it, I'm like, how do I get them to listen? And he says, just plant the seed, and eventually they'll come back to it, and they will thank you for being consistent. He said, just be consistent. And as God is my witness, I have students coming back and be like, man, Mr. Parker, I don't mess with milk no more. I'm letting this meat go. I'm becoming a vegetarian. I'm laying off of the flaming hots. I don't eat McDonald's no more. I remember used to tell us McDonald's, man, why we eat? We used to call it McDeath. And so I would show them, because I loved them. And so I was willing to, go back and forth with parents, because parents is, what are you doing? My child says she wants to be a vegetarian. Who do you think you are? And I'll just tell the story real quick. I'll tell the story. I had to go to a funeral, and it was for one of the family members at Oakdale. And I saw the family sitting there, and the young lady that was in my class, and the family were against me teaching her about the benefits of being vegetarian or of a plant-based lifestyle, which I see she has started to adopt. And I'm looking at her, and I'm looking at the rest of her family. Again, I'm not throwing those stones because I'm not perfect. But she looks totally different than the way that her family looks. And it's not because she comes from a different gene pool. It's because she's living a different lifestyle. So her lifestyle choices, her being a nurse practitioner now, has afforded her some leverage to say, no, I'm not doing that. First of all, I'm an adult now. So even though you may not agree with, let's say, Mr. Parker or me, it doesn't matter what you agree with. What matters is what I want for myself. And that's what I tell children. You know, nobody's putting food in your mouth after a certain age. You're eating it yourselves. And so you have leverage, you have power. If you want to change your diet, just start doing it gradually. Tell your parents, hey, I want to eat more vegetables. What parent would not agree to that? Hey, I want to, you know what I'm saying? So it's so I wince at it because we're fighting, as Pastor Griffin said at Oakdale, you don't fight against, you fight against, I think he said in the scripture, principalities. It's certain principles that have been implanted and supplanting our own advancement.
Right.
And so we have to come back and get to the root of the problem. So I don't take it personal. Professor was trying to today correct a young man that says, I'm strong because I eat meat. And he says, young man, our bodies don't need meat. And he was 16 or 15. He was like, yes, we do. 17. I'm sorry. He was 17. He says, our body absolutely needs meat. And I know this because everywhere I'm going, I'm the strongest person. I'm like, we're going to get to him. We're going to get to him before the summer is over. We're going to show you what all that strength is going to do. But I just want to share that because it hurts my heart sometimes that, we have to fight with the death and degradation that's in our communities. And then it's in the households, and then it's affecting the children. Remember, children come here with a blank slate. So it's no fault of their own that, they're eating Flaming Hots and Takis. And the children walk around, they get the whole blue mouth. I'm like, if I made whatever you're drinking, if I made it right in front of you, stirred it up and try to serve it to you, you would accuse me of trying to poison you. Yet you go and purchase it, right, and drink it up only because it has that substance in it that you're addicted to, which is sugar in the form of high fructose corn syrup. But I could speak at length on these things because this is my mission, but also my purpose is to teach the truth. No matter what it does, no matter how many darts I have to, and arrows I have to take, I'm going to continue to share what I know and understand by God's grace.
Yes, sir. So my producer is telling me to wrap it up. I wanted her to flash your flyer for your basketball camp this summer because we have a lot of things going on. So we try to squeeze it in an hour. It's difficult sometimes, but if she wants, tell us about the basketball camp, where it is, how long it is.
So right now we're at UIC Student Rec Center, Student Recreation Center at 737 South Halsted. It is basketball centered, but it's not a basketball camp. So we call it STEM, which stands for Sports, Technology, Education, and Mentoring. Today we had a session from a nutritionist and a business owner in the Hyde Park community who owns a juice bar. And so she had samples of juice that she makes from her juice bar and had the children sample them and told them as an athlete, if you want to recover, if you want to get vital nutrients and minerals to your body, the best way of doing it, the most fast way of doing it is by drinking juice, right? That comes from whole foods. So we're not just talking about juice from fruits. We're talking about juice from vegetables. And she let them know your body has to digest your food. So when your body digests your food, it puts it into a liquid form. But if your body's getting it into a liquid form already, then you are able to get it that much faster.
That's right.
So that's just one of the sessions we do. But we do a lot of mentoring with the young people. And again, we're planting seeds. We're not trying to get them to go home and start throwing out all the chicken and fish and turkey and whatever else they may have in there. We're just saying,
let's try to get rid of the processed foods first.
Let's do that. Let's add fruits. And we tell them every lunch, you sit down with us, you need one fruit, one vegetable before you go grab your burger and your fry, your pizza, whatever. One fruit, one vegetable. And if you don't get it, when we get back to that gym, there's some consequences and repercussions that you are going to have to step forward and receive. And so they're starting to get it. And so I'm appreciative of it. But yeah, we are there Monday through Thursday. We're there through July 31st. We have another 5 more weeks.
Okay. So, and are you accepting any students?
Absolutely. Yeah. We are right now. We're at about 25. I think we have room for 40 plus. But if we go over 40 or 50, we'll try to take as many as we can, because this is ministry work. And so in ministry work, we can't turn away anybody.
Okay. And
And
so you give them the number or a website to go to again?
Yeah, they can call me directly, 773-619-9749. Our website is fundamentalstraining.org, fundamentals with an S, training, all one word, .org. But the phone number is probably the best way to reach me, 773-619-9749. Professor, I heard you had something there.
Yes, sir. I want to thank you all again for coming on and sharing with us. I know we have so much because we do so much, and it's only a blessing, and it speaks to what we contribute to our communities. I'm honored to have you on as guests, and I'm honored to be your friend.
thank you.
So with that, I leave you in peace. Assalamu alaikum.
Heart to heart.
We'll end with, and maybe we'll end with a commercial. I'm not sure. But thanks again.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for having me.
It's not just a division, like an offshoot or a section, but I say the other half of the conference is the youth division. That's the other half of this conference.
It's something about the spirit of this team, of the youth division, or the second half, as Brother Grandmaster Abdul Aziz said, of this national training conference. The spirit that you all have is so contagious.
We've opened up for people in the community because it is about everybody being prepared. We have our neighbors and our friends outside of the nation prepared, then we have that preparation for ourselves and our families as well.
This is not just martial arts. This is so much more. The martial arts is an additional component that is really the smallest part of what you're getting, because your mind has to be stronger than your body, but your body has to be strong enough to manage what your mind comes up with. Listen, join that. Register now. Don't waste any time. Register now.
Triumph over trials. A call for strength, faith, and preparedness.
Register you and the entire family at thevskjujitsu.com. Don't miss it.
Picking up the best. Imani's original. A color above the rest. Sweet, savory, every bite's divine. Bean pie's fresh every single time. Taste the magic in every slice. Come on, now don't think twice.